It was a quiet evening. The sound of tools echoed softly from the small mechanic's workshop at the corner of the street. A young man wearing an old grey uniform wiped the sweat from his forehead as he tightened the last bolt on a custom-made wheelchair. His hands were rough, his clothes were dirty, but his eyes shined with kindness. Across from him sat a girl no older than 20, paralyzed from the waist down. Her old wheelchair was broken beyond repair, and she had lost hope until this man decided to help her without asking for anything in return. When he rolled the new wheelchair toward her, her eyes filled with tears. She touched it slowly, unable to believe someone could do something so beautiful just for her. The mechanic smiled shyly and said, "Try it. I made it just for you." The girl's trembling hands gripped the wheels. She moved forward smoothly, freely, for the first time in years. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she looked back at him and whispered, "Thank you. You gave me back my life." At that very moment, a black car stopped nearby. A billionaire businessman, who had been watching everything silently, stepped out. He was speechless. He had spent his life building empires, but what he saw today built something far greater, human kindness. He walked up to the mechanic and said softly, "You've done more than I ever could. From today, I'll make sure your kindness reaches the whole world." The mechanic looked down, humbled, as the girl smiled brighter than ever before. The air was filled with something rare, pure goodness. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. A channel named Soul of Kindness, because one act of kindness can change everything. The next morning, the sun rose softly over the quiet town. The mechanic arrived early at his little workshop. You're the same place where dreams were repaired, along with broken machines. He didn't know that. The video of him building the wheelchair for the paralyzed girl had gone viral overnight. People across the city were sharing it, calling him the man who fixed hope. As he set his tools on the bench, he heard the sound of a car stopping outside. When he looked up, he saw the same black luxury car from yesterday. The billionaire stepped out, this time not alone. He was accompanied by a group of reporters, engineers and volunteers. The mechanic froze. He wasn't used to attention. His hands were trembling, grease-stained and rough, as the billionaire approached him with a gentle smile. "You probably don't realize what you've done," the billionaire said. "You didn't just build a wheelchair. You built a miracle. You reminded people what kindness looks like." The mechanic lowered his eyes. "I just wanted to help her. I couldn't watch her cry every day," he whispered, voice heavy with emotion. The girl, now sitting proudly in her new wheelchair, rolled up beside them. Her face was glowing. "You didn't just fix my chair, you fixed my heart," she said, her voice breaking with tears. Everyone around fell silent. Even the reporters, who had come for a story, stood quietly and some wiping their eyes. The billionaire turned to the cameras and said, "From today, this workshop will no longer be small. We will build hundreds of these wheelchairs for those who cannot afford them. And this man," he looked at the mechanic, "will lead the project." The mechanic's eyes filled with tears. He looked up at the sky, whispering, "Thank you, God, for letting me be useful." The girl reached out her hand to him. He took it gently. Around them, the crowd began to clap. In that moment, it wasn't just a mechanic, a girl, or a billionaire standing there. It was humanity itself, shining bright in the morning sun. Days passed, but the moment never left anyone's heart. The video of the mechanic and the paralyzed girl had now reached millions. Around the world, donations began to pour in from people who were touched by their story. The small garage that once smelled of oil and dust now echoed with laughter, hope and purpose. The billionaire kept his promise. He turned that tiny workshop into a foundation named Wheels of Hope. The mechanic, who once struggled to buy his next meal, was now leading a team of engineers, mechanics and volunteers, building dozens of customized wheelchairs for poor and disabled children. But the mechanic's heart was still humble. Every time a new wheelchair was ready, he would personally test it, clean it and whisper softly, "May this bring you freedom." One rainy afternoon, the girl came again. She had learned to move so freely now. her hair flying as she wheeled through the puddles outside the new workshop. She brought flowers in her lap, simple white daisies. When she saw the mechanic, her eyes shined. "Do you know what day it is?" she asked, smiling. He shook his head. "It's the day you gave me wings," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Before you, I was trapped. Now every sunrise feels like a miracle." The mechanic felt his throat tighten. He couldn't speak. Tears filled his eyes as she placed the flowers on his workbench. "You didn't just build a chair," she continued. "You built my courage to live again." At that moment, the billionaire entered quietly, holding an envelope. "This," he said, handing it to the mechanic, "is a scholarship fund for children with disabilities, in your name." The mechanic's eyes widened in disbelief. "In my name?" he asked softly. The billionaire nodded. "Because you taught us that even an ordinary man can create extraordinary change." The mechanic turned away, wiping his tears with his worn hands. "I'm just a man who fixed a chair," he said quietly. The billionaire smiled. "No, you fixed the world one heart at a time." Rain began to fall harder outside, but inside, the room glowed with something brighter than sunlight. Human love, compassion, and gratitude. The girl looked up, whispering, "People may forget what you said, but they'll never forget what you did." The mechanic finally smiled, a deep, peaceful smile, the kind that comes when a soul knows it has done something truly beautiful. Months passed. The small workshop that once stood at the corner of a dusty street had now become a symbol of hope across the country. Reporters, volunteers, students, and doctors all visited that place, not just to see the wheelchairs, but to witness the miracle of kindness that began with one humble mechanic and one broken girl's dream. The mechanic never changed. He still wore the same old grey uniform, still wiped the sweat from his forehead, and still greeted everyone with a shy smile. But now his hands, those rough, hard-working hands, had touched hundreds of lives. One morning the girl came again. This time she wasn't alone. Behind her were 10 children, each in a brand new wheelchair, each smiling brightly. The mechanic looked at them, his eyes wide, his lips trembling. "These are your children," she said softly. "Each one of them rides because of you." He couldn't move. His knees weakened, his eyes filled. He looked at the children, their laughter echoing in the air, and whispered, "I never thought my hands could create happiness like this." The billionaire stood nearby, quietly watching. He placed a gentle hand on the mechanic's shoulder. "Do you remember the day I saw you fix in that first chair?" he asked. The mechanic nodded. "That day," the billionaire continued, his voice heavy with emotion, "I thought I was rich. But I wasn't. You showed me what real wealth looks like. It's not in money. It's in hearts that can feel and hands that can help." The mechanic looked down, tears falling freely now. "I didn't do much. I just did what felt right." The girl rolled closer, her voice breaking. "You did everything. You gave me life, and through me you gave life to others." Suddenly, the children began to sing a small song, their voices pure and innocent, echoing in the morning air. "Thank you for giving us wheels. Thank you for giving us dreams." Everyone standing there, the workers, the billionaire, even the journalists, had tears in their eyes. The mechanic covered his face, overcome with emotion. The billionaire spoke again, his voice soft. "This place will now be known as the Soul of Kindness Foundation." The mechanic looked up, shocked. The girl smiled, whispering, "That's what you are, the soul of kindness." He couldn't speak anymore. He just looked around, at the smiling faces, the children's laughter, the blooming hope, and smiled through his tears. As the camera panned out, the sound of laughter mixed with the gentle hum of wheels on the pavement. The world had changed, not through power or money, but through one man's quiet act of love. Years passed. The world moved on, but the story of the humble mechanic never faded. His small act of kindness had grown into a worldwide movement. The Soul of Kindness Foundation now had branches in different countries, building thousands of wheelchairs, every year for children and adults who couldn't walk. But time had begun to slow the old mechanic down. His hair had turned white, his hands had grown weaker, And his tools, once his best friends, now felt heavy. Yet every morning he still came to the workshop, touched each wheelchair lovingly and whispered, "Go. Bring someone their freedom." One evening, the billionaire and the girl, now a young woman, walking with the help of therapy and determination, came to visit him. The workshop was quiet, except for the sound of rain tapping softly on the roof. The mechanic sat on a wooden chair, a gentle smile on his face. "You came," he said softly. The girl knelt beside him, holding his hand. "I promised I'd come back," she whispered, tears in her eyes, "because you never left my heart." The billionaire placed a hand on the mechanic's shoulder. "The world knows your name now," he said, "but we both know you never did it for fame." The mechanic chuckled weakly. "No, I did it because pain shouldn't have to be permanent. If these hands could fix one broken life, that was enough." His eyes grew moist as he looked at the young woman. "You were my first hope," he said softly. "When you smiled that day, I realized I had found my purpose." She pressed his hand to her heart. "You gave me legs of freedom," she whispered through tears. "But more than that, you gave me strength to believe again." He smiled faintly. "Then my job is done." The billionaire, eyes glistening, said quietly, "No, your job will never be done. Your kindness will live on in every wheel that moves, every smile that blooms." Outside, the rain stopped. A golden light broke through the clouds and filled the small workshop. The mechanic looked toward it, whispering, "Maybe God just wanted me to fix a few hearts before I came home." The girl began to cry, resting her head on his lap, whispering, "And you'll always be with us." The billionaire looked away, blinking back tears. The room was silent. Only the soft hum of the rain guttering outside and the sound of breath slowing down. A gentle peace spread across the mechanic's face, a smile so calm, so pure, as if his soul was finally free. The girl whispered, "Goodbye, my angel of kindness." The crowd released the flowers. Into the wind, thousands of petals rising toward the sky. And as they floated upward, the world seemed to whisper the same words written on the wall of his old workshop. One act of kindness can change everything. As if this ending touched your soul, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. The channel name Soul of Kindness. Because legends don't die, they live forever in every act of love.